Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today we are going to make homemade brownies. And this recipe is one that I have been chasing my entire life, honestly. I owned a restaurant many moons ago, and I did a lot of the desserts. And I kept trying to make the perfect brownie. And honestly, I just gave up and I used box mix because I could never get that chewy, fudgy brownie with those crisp edges and that top that's kind of shiny and a little cracked. I could never master it. So I used a box mix, and I think a lot of us do. We use the box mix. It's super easy, obviously, and they're delicious, right? They're delicious brownies. But I was determined over the past couple of months to figure out how to make the perfect brownies. And I've done a lot of research about it, and I found out some things I was doing wrong, so I definitely will share those with you in this video. And I'll show you how easy it is to make the batter. Whether you have the Ninja Foodi cold and hot blender or not, you can make this batter in a regular stand mixer. That's no problem. And I'm gonna cook it in the Ninja Foodi digital air fry oven, but you can cook it in the regular oven too. So this is a recipe for everybody, but not for the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper because the pan's just too big to fit. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is put in our butter. This is 3/4 of a cup of salted butter. That's 1.5 sticks. And it is room temperature, but for this recipe, it makes no difference. You can use it cold right out of the refrigerator because we're gonna use the cold and hot blender to melt it. So I'm gonna add that in. I do put it into little slices just so that it can get down underneath the blades and start to melt, because there's these blades here, and if it's all in one stick, it just takes a little bit longer. So I just, put it in little slices and then I just push it down so it's in there. All right, so that's good. And then we're gonna add in 1 cup of dark chocolate chips. And these are from Ghirardelli, but you could use whatever kind of dark chocolate chips you like. You could even use semi-sweet, and you probably could use milk chocolate, but it is going to turn out to be a really sweet brownie. All right, and there we go. And now we will put the lid on the blender. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna turn the blender on, and we're gonna select the cook mode. We want high, and we're gonna let that go for 3 minutes. That's gonna start to melt that butter, and then we're gonna pulse it up so that the chocolate chips kind of get, pulsed up a little bit, chopped up a little bit. Then we'll turn it down to low and we'll cook it another 2 minutes. By that time, it will be the perfect consistency. So while that's happening, I'm gonna go ahead and crack my eggs, because this is one thing that I learned that I think can be super helpful depending on the type of brownie you like. Now, if you like a cake brownie, which is, just kind of fluffy like a chocolate cake, then this would not apply, okay? So this is for that chewy, fudgy, decadent brownie. Keep your eggs cold. So take them right out of the refrigerator when you're ready to use them. And I thought that's odd because we're always told that we should have our eggs at room temperature for baking. And that is true with a lot of different cakes. And I usually always do, even for cookies. But what I was reading on the internet is that when the eggs are room temperature, and the reason why they tell you to put it room temperature is so when you whip them up with the sugar, you incorporate the air and they become real fluffy. And room temperature eggs do that a lot easier. So if they're cold though, what's gonna happen is it's not gonna have so much air in it, which isn't gonna give us as much lift. So we're gonna have denser, tighter crumb on our brownie, and that leads to fudgy, chewy deliciousness. So cold eggs for once. And that makes it perfect because I always forget to take them out. But if you are making a recipe and you need eggs that are room temperature, just stick them in a bowl of hot water for about 15 minutes and that'll do the trick. All right, so I'm using 5 eggs. That is a lot of eggs, I know, but it works perfectly in this recipe. Keep an eye on the time because you don't want to go much more than the 3 minutes or your chocolate could start to melt into the butter and then hit that bottom element and overheat. And chocolate that overheats seizes. All right, so I'm seeing the butter really starting to melt. I could hear a little sizzling in there, and the chocolate chips are starting to kind of fall down a little bit. So I know that we are on the right track here. And in about 20 seconds, I'm gonna pulse 3 times just to chop it up. And then we will turn the heat down to low and go another 2 minutes. Then we get the rest of our ingredients in and we pour the batter into the pan and then we bake it. So these are really easy. But if you don't have the Ninja Foodi cold and hot blender or any blender that heats and cooks, you can certainly heat your butter and your chocolate in the microwave, stir it up a little bit, and then proceed with the rest of the recipe in a bowl of a stand mixer or in a large bowl with a hand mixer. That'll be fine. All right, so let's cancel the cook, restart the cook, but this time select low, and I'm gonna pulse. And really just a few seconds each time, or not even that, a second each pulse, and that's fine. Now, if you wanted to, like I see a couple of chocolate chips right here on the side, you can go in with your spatula and just push them down. That's fine. Put the lid back on, and then you have to hit the low button again for it to resume cooking, okay? All right, let me grab my sugar because we're gonna do that next. So what I have here is 1.5 cups of sugar, 5 eggs, obviously, and 1/3 of a cup of canola oil. You could use vegetable oil. I do recommend using the combination of oil and butter in this recipe, but you could probably get away with all butter or all oil. It might change the texture a little bit though. All right, so when this gets to the 2-minute mark, I'm gonna take off the lid and add in 1 teaspoon of espresso powder. Now, this is optional, so you don't have to use it. If you can't find it at the store or you just really have an aversion to anything coffee, you don't have to use it. But what this does in the recipe is boost up that chocolate flavor. So I really do encourage you to use it, but it's not essential. It's not gonna change the outcome of your brownie texture or anything like that. All right, so now we can cancel this cook. I'm gonna put this in, put the espresso powder in, and then I'm gonna blend it up again. And I'm also gonna peek in here, and I'm kind of short. There's a couple of chocolate chips on the side. I wanna press down here. Now, if some of them are not melted, it's gonna be okay because it'll just be like little chunks in our brownies. And we're gonna stir in some extra chocolate chips, optional of course, at the end anyway before we bake them. So it'll be fine if it's not completely melted. And I'm just gonna hit the pulse button. And about 3 seconds is fine. That's just going to incorporate that espresso and help it get into the heated mixture in here and dissolve and all that kind of goodness. All right, so next thing I'm gonna add in is some salt. And now we can just keep going with our ingredients. So I'm gonna add in the 1.5 cups of sugar. And I'm gonna pulse that up as well. Another trick that I learned, which I can't believe I never knew this, that I read on the internet, so hopefully it is true, you know, Google is our friend, is if you add in the sugar with the melted butter, it does something during the baking process that causes the sugar to migrate up to the top, and that's what helps give that flaky, like crust on top of brownies that's shiny and just that little bit of crispness, you know? And hey, it's worked in this recipe, so I'm gonna say it's the truth. All right, so now I'm just gonna pulse again. That's good. And now we can go ahead and add in the rest of the ingredients here, of the wet ingredients anyway. So I'm gonna add in the 5 eggs. And the 1/3 of a cup of oil. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. All right, I'm gonna take a peek in here and just scrape down the sides. And everything looks really good. It's well combined. Perfect. All right, there we go. Now, the dry ingredients. Now, this is where things can get a little bit tricky, so I do want to definitely share some tips with you that I have learned, especially if you're making it in the blender, because we are putting this blender to the maximum test here with this recipe. In fact, I had tried to create the recipe for the pan that comes with the digital oven, you know, the bigger size pan. And so I doubled a recipe that I had been working on, and it was too much batter for the blender. And I just love the fact that I have one thing to clean. So I really wanted to keep this a blender recipe for those of you who have the Ninja Foodi Hot Cold Blender. But in my written post, I will go over how to make the changes in the recipe amounts if you wanted to bake it in this oven in the pan that came with the oven. Okay, so I'll definitely go over that in the recipe if you want to use a stand mixer for this. It works perfectly. All right, so now to add in the flour and the cocoa powder, we need to do this in stages because otherwise it becomes too thick on top and it doesn't incorporate all the way through, and it's just a mess. It just takes too much time, and the idea is to save time, right? So I left this out on purpose here because I wanted to let you know that also sifting the flour and the cocoa powder is important in this recipe. So please take the time to do that. And I just use a fine sieve strainer to sift the powder, sift the cocoa powder and the flour. And what I have here is 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. And I'm just gonna mix it up so that it's combined evenly. And we're gonna add it in little stages, about 1/4 cup at a time. All right, let me find my little 1/4 cup. There it is. Now, I have tried many different ways to do this. I tried to use a funnel so that I could just keep it on the blend setting and just, you know, add it in that way. And it just didn't work as well. So what I do is I do it in 1/2 cup increments, and then I pulse or go on the low blend setting until it's incorporated. So we're gonna open this up, dump the 1/2 cup in. Peek in there. Yep, that looks good. Dump. And they don't have to be exact. Obviously, that's kind of like a heaping cup there. And do the same thing. And you can also just set it on the blend low. That works fine too. Go a few seconds and then go ahead and add in another addition. Open it up. It'll pause it. Take a peek inside. If you see any kind of flour sitting on the top, then use your tamper or a spatula to push it down. And then we just hit that back again. Oops, I've already got brownie batter on me. That happens every time I cook. Especially baking. Like usually I would have flour everywhere too. If I wasn't on camera, I would have flour probably all over me. All right. Looking good. It's usually the last few additions that you really have to kind of push the flour down. Yeah, now that's what I'm talking about. So then I just take it and just kind of mix it up here. Push down the sides. Oh gosh, it smells so good. This is such a delicious brownie. Oh, I can't wait to hear how you guys like it. All right, you might see my display. Well, it was reading like 0, and that's because after a minute it times out. It won't let you just keep blending. So it timed out on me, and I just reset it. That's no problem. All right, let's go in here and see. And see, it's getting thicker, so it's a little harder to incorporate, but the blender does a fantastic job. And I love the fact that it's just one bowl to mix everything up in, because we're even going to add in our chocolate chips and mix it right in the blender. So that's it. We're going to dirty this. Well, I dirty more things because obviously I have them already put out, but you don't have to dirty as many bowls as I do. All right, let's add this in. We can probably go ahead and add in the rest now. And then I'm going to show you a good use for the little tamper tool that most of the blenders came with. I think there was a few versions that didn't. All right, let's put this back on. And we're gonna go back to low. So at the very end, if you have a tamper, you can go right in the center here and sort of mix around. It won't hit the blades, and that's going to help to incorporate the rest of the flour. All right, put that over there. Let's see how we're doing. All right, so just push it down here. All right, it looks beautiful. There's just a tiny bit of flour, but I'm just mixing it around, and it's incorporating just wonderfully. All right, make sure you go all the way down the sides where some of the flour might be sticking. All right, that's it. Okay, brownie batter has been made. Now, I like to put chocolate chips in my brownie batter. So I'm gonna add in 3/4 cup of chocolate chips. These are, again, dark chocolate chips, but you could use whatever you wanted. You could even use white chocolate chips if you wanted to add something different to the mix. And I'm just gonna mix it around a little bit. This batter is glorious. I mean, it is the perfect brownie batter. Now, I'm going to clean up real quick, and I'm gonna get our pan out, tell you how I prep the pan, and then we're gonna get it into the oven to bake for 35 minutes at 325 degrees. Okay, so the pan that I'm gonna use is 11.5 by 9. And this is a pan that I just got off of Amazon. I'm not thrilled with the quality, I'll be honest with you, because there's been a little bit of like chipping already. So I'm gonna look for a better quality before I recommend it, but it is a great size for the Ninja Foodi digital air fry oven. So I do like that about it. I also like the fact that my little, this is not brand name Silpat, but it's the same kind of thing, fits right in here. So this is perfect for the brownies, but not necessary. You can use parchment paper. If you use parchment paper underneath your brownies, which you do want to use something underneath the brownies, then definitely coat the bottom with a little bit of butter or some kind of Crisco or something like that, something that's solid, so that when you put your parchment down, it actually stays in place. Otherwise, it's gonna slip and slide as you move your brownies, and it just makes a mess. And how do I know? I did it. Okay. So this is a 9 by 11.5, and it fits right in here absolutely perfectly. Even the corners are a little cut, and so it just fits absolutely perfectly in this pan, and it makes getting the brownies out so easy. So now let's pour the brownie batter in. Now this spatula is fantastic. I absolutely love it. However, Pampered Chef just came out with something new because they have a similar kind of blender, and it is a spatula for the blender. And so it's made a little bit more durable, because what I noticed when I used this, if I dug around down where the blades were, the blades would cut this. So this is actually designed to go down by the blades. So I think that's great. All right, now we're just gonna make the brownie batter come out here. Oh, wow, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Oh, and this is my first time using this tool, and it worked great. Oh, I really like it. And it really does get down in there. That's nice. All right, just a little bit more, and we are done. All right, that looks good. Just move this off. All right, now I'm gonna go back to this because I think it's easier. All right, so now I'm just gonna spread it out on the pan. Try to get it as even as you can. All right, looks great. All right, now let's go ahead and open up the oven. Pull the rack out. I'm gonna set this right on the tray. No need to preheat this oven, but if you're using a conventional oven, you would want to preheat it at 325 degrees. And also keep in mind that the color of the pan matters. So if you're using the Ninja Foodi digital air fry oven and you're gonna use the pan that came with it, which is a nonstick darker surface pan, you're gonna wanna decrease your heat to 300 instead of 325, and then just keep an eye on it and see how it's going as far as the timing goes. Same thing with the oven. If you are gonna use a light pan, you can increase your temperature to 350, maybe even 375 degrees. But if you're using a darker colored, you want to keep that at 325 in the oven, in the regular conventional oven. All right, we're going to turn this on, and we are going to select the bake function, and we want 325, and we want, actually, let me take that time up. We want 35 minutes, and then hit start. And the oven's going to bake our brownies, and then we will get them out, let them cool, cut them up, and taste them. All right, so we just finished up the 35-minute bake time, and now I'm gonna go ahead and open it up and take a look at our brownies. Oh, they smell wonderful. All right, now they have puffed up a lot more than the test recipes. So I'm gonna see, will this fall back down? But you see all this nice cracking? That's what gives you that delicious crisp topping. So I'm real curious about why though they puffed up, and I have got a couple of thoughts behind that, and I will certainly share them with you so that I can tell you how not to have that happen. But I'm not worried about it right now because I still need to get them off the rack and cooling. All right, I'm just gonna put these on the cooling rack, and look, they are already starting to settle down, so I think we are really good to go. And I changed gloves because having the right tools for the job is so important. And what I realized, even though these give great protection, I just couldn't grip correctly, and I could see the brownie pan either falling on the counter or me pushing my finger into it or it, burning me. So I switched over to these gloves, and now I'm all safe and sound. Okay, so you can see now that what was domed up is now settling down, and that's also gonna create that nice chewy, fudgy center. So I'm gonna let these cool about 10 minutes, and I'm gonna pop them in the refrigerator, let them cool completely. Yes, you can cut into them after 10 minutes. It's fine. But I want them to come out nice and clean. And if you refrigerate them, they will come out really nice and cleanly. And then also you will have some of the texture of the chocolate chips. If we cut them after 10 minutes, you're gonna have ooey gooey chocolate, which is delicious, but I'd like to have that texture different. So I'm gonna pop mine in the fridge, but that's totally optional. All right, so I got the brownies out. They were in the refrigerator for about 45 minutes to an hour. I didn't time it. No big deal. You know, you can cut them whenever you want to. And I'm going to go ahead and dig in. They look great. So they definitely have this nice, crisp top that I love. And they settle down nicely, so they're not puffy at all. And I'm going to take a little square here. Now, if you have... well, any pan really, I don't recommend going in with a sharp knife because you're just going to mark up your pan. So I use one of these knives that are nylon, so that doesn't happen. And then let's get in here just to kind of release from the sides. The first one of anything is always the hardest to get out. So if some is stuck to the bottom, you know, it is what it is. But I try to make it as unstuck as I can. All right. Let's get under there. All right. Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh yes. That is the perfect brownie for me. Fudgy. All right, I'm gonna take a little bite of the center here. So perfect. It's still warm in the middle. So perfect. All right, now, this outside, which my favorite is actually the corner pieces anyway, because I like a little bit of the fudge with a little bit of the crispiness. So let's see how that worked out. Perfect. Perfection. I'm so happy with this recipe. So delicious. Now, it's not like an overly sweet brownie, which I happen to like. So it's the dark chocolate. It's really, really chocolatey tasting. Fudgy and then crisp. I mean, it's a perfect brownie for me. But if you liked your brownies a little bit sweeter, then you could certainly go to the semi-sweet chocolate instead of the dark chocolate. And I use dark chocolate cocoa as well. And you could switch that up for regular cocoa. I don't think I mentioned that earlier in the video, but it is dark chocolate cocoa. So anyway, that's it. So between the blender and the oven, another win. I'm so excited. I love doing my brownie batter in the blender. It makes it so easy to do. But again, you can do it in a hand mixer or in a bowl with a regular mixer, or you could really honestly do it by hand. So any way you want to make these brownies, just make sure you make them because they are delicious. Oh, and if you like nuts, add in nuts. So, you know, customize it however you like. We also would be very good with a ganache over the top. So if you wanted to make a chocolate ganache and decorate them a little bit, you could certainly do that as well.